If you've ever gotten into urban exploring, you know the appeal. You find some old building everybody's forgotten about, an empty factory, a shut-down hospital, whatever it is, and you go poke around and take photos before it gets torn down. Most of the time, it's exactly what you'd expect. Dust, broken windows, nobody around for miles. But every so often, somebody gets a reminder that abandoned doesn't always mean empty. These are 3 stories from people who went looking for a quiet, forgotten place and found out somebody had gotten there first. Story 1. I've been into urban exploring for years, and one of my favorite finds was this old factory on the edge of town that was finally getting knocked down. Massive place, shut for at least 10 years, all boarded up. A couple of us got in through a gap in the fence one afternoon, and honestly, it was perfect. Rusted machines, light coming through the broken roof, the whole thing. Exactly what you go in there for. We're maybe 20 minutes in, taking photos, when one of the guys stops and points at the floor. There's this thick layer of dust over everything, years of it, except for one spot. A clear set of footprints going across the room and off down a corridor. And they were fresh, you could tell, because the edges were still sharp, not blurred over the way old prints get. At first, we kind of laughed it off. Other explorers come through these places all the time, so it was probably just somebody like us. But then, we started noticing other stuff. A door that should have been rusted shut was sitting open. There was a chair pulled up by one of the windows, facing out at the exact gap in the fence we'd climbed through, like somebody sat there watching people come and go. And in the next room over, somebody had cleared a space on the floor and laid out a few blankets. That's when it stopped being fun. We were all standing there really quiet, and that's when we heard it. Somewhere deeper in the building, a door closed. Not slammed, just clicked shut, soft, like somebody trying not to be heard. Nobody said a word. We just turned around and walked, fast, back the way we came, and didn't stop until we were through that fence and halfway down the block. I found out later that the demolition crew had to clear the place out first, because a guy had been living in there for months. They'd known about him, apparently, which means that chair by the window, the one pointed right at where we came in, he'd probably been sitting in it watching us the whole time we were inside. Story 2. I do a lot of photography, and I got into shooting these old service tunnels under the older part of my city. Most people don't even know they're down there. You get in through a few different spots if you know where to look, and it's this whole network of brick passages, completely dark, water dripping, the kind of place that makes amazing photos if you bring the right lights. I'd been down a few times on my own without any trouble. But on this one trip, I started noticing marks on the walls, little chalk arrows pointing the way deeper in. Some explorers do mark their routes so they don't get lost, so I didn't think much of it at first. But these looked recent. The chalk was still bright, not faded, and there were a lot of them, way more than you'd need just to find your way back. So I followed them, because of course I did. And the further in I went, the more it changed. The arrows turned into other marks, little tally marks scratched into the brick, in groups, hundreds of them running along the wall. I had no idea what they were counting. Days, maybe. I didn't really want to know. Then I came around a corner, and my light landed on this sort of nest. Blankets, a camping stove, empty cans, bottles of water, tucked into an alcove in the wall, and it was clearly being used. There was a sleeping bag that still had the shape of somebody in it. I stood there for maybe 2 seconds, and then I heard footsteps echoing somewhere back the way I'd come, between me and the way out. I turned my light off, which, looking back, was probably dumb, and just waited there in the dark, heart pounding, until they faded off in some other direction. Then I got out of there, as quietly and as fast as I could. I never went back. A while later, I brought it up on a forum for people who explore down there, and a couple of others said they'd seen the same nest and the same marks. As far as I know, nobody ever figured out who he was or what all those tally marks were for. Story 3. I was a photography student at the time, and for a project, I wanted to shoot an abandoned school on the other side of town. It was an old brick building, closed for years, with long corridors and classrooms full of broken furniture. I went on my own one morning, which I'd do differently now, and let myself in through a side door that was open. The first thing that felt off was the smell. Most of these places smell like damp and rot, but in one of the hallways there was a smell of food, like somebody had been cooking. I told myself it was just drifting in from outside. Then I went into one of the classrooms, and there was a mattress in the corner with actual bedding on it, folded up neatly. A few clothes, a little camping light. None of it looked old or abandoned. It looked lived in. I should have left right then. Instead, being an idiot, I figured I'd grab a couple of photos first, because it really was a great shot. And I'm standing there lining it up when I hear a voice behind me say, "You shouldn't be in here." I turned around, and there was a man standing in the doorway. Not yelling, not coming at me, just standing there completely still, watching me. And the worst part was how calm he was, like he'd been expecting me. Like this was his place, and I was the one who'd broken in, which I guess I had. I said something stupid like, "Sorry, I'm leaving," and he didn't move, didn't say anything else, just kept watching me as I edged past him into the corridor. I walked. I didn't run, because something told me running was a bad idea. And I got out that same side door and didn't stop until I was back on the main street. I went back to that street a few months later, and the school had been fenced off and was getting turned into apartments. So whoever he was, he'd been living in there on his own, in an empty school, for who knows how long. I still think about how calm he was when he said it. Like I wasn't the first person to walk in on him, and I wouldn't be the last. If you've ever explored somewhere you thought was empty and got that feeling you weren't actually alone, tell me about it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.